call this special meeting of the Southwest Licking Board of Education to order. Reading of the meeting notice. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22 and 3313.16, notice is hereby given that a special meeting of the Southwest Licking Local School District Board of Education, Fairfield and Licking Counties, Ohio, is scheduled to be held on Thursday, August 4th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. The meeting will be held in the Southwest Licking Local School District Board Meeting Room, 927B South Street, Pataskala, Ohio. The purpose of this meeting will be to consider the GMP for Phase 2 of the West Campus Sports Complex project and additional contingency money for Phase 1 of the West Campus Sports Complex project. Do I read that last paragraph too?
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay, cool. I'd like to recognize our visitors here in the room and online, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fast. Mr. Jones, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Engel.
Here.
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here.
Mr. Zini.
Here.
Mrs. Spindler.
Here. We have a quorum. We can continue. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Zini.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes, and that passes. A request to speak on agenda items, Teamsters 413 or Southwest Licking Education Association. Seeing no one, we will move to item 3, business items.
Motion to approve and then discuss?
Can we do them
Yeah,
together?
both of them? or
Yeah.
just one?
There's 3A and B.
Well, let's motion to approve 3A and B.
Second.
All right, discussion.
So what you have there attached is the map of the kind of talks about the various projects that are included with this GMP. So it is the entire baseball field complex, but also includes bleachers, trash cans, stuff for tennis courts. It also includes the 2-story press box storage / concession stand for softball, in between softball fields. Also bleachers for both the varsity and JV softball fields. And a storage shed for softball. It's about 24 by, I think they said 16 or 8. It's a good sized building.
That sounds about right.
Along with, so that's all the alternates this is covered. So we only received one GMP, and that was from Elford. We did meet with them. They did come back a little. We got some what's called a value engineering done. They would bring some of the costs down a little bit. I think it's about $78,000. It came down a little bit. There's a couple other items that are a discussion that could, but we're just asking the board to approve it at 1.5, with the understanding it may be lower than that with some of the changes. So it's 1.542 plus the $3,000 for the pre-construction cost. Any specific questions about number 1? Funding wise at this point, what I see the money coming from is about $500,000 sitting in the PI contingency account. There's a minimum of $500,000 in the JED. It may be more than that, but I'm just at this point, because part of that's got used to pay back the debt for COPS 2. So that leaves about $1 million between the project and the contingency that will come out of the general fund. We've done this in the past. One-time expenditures to the general fund doesn't hurt us. And as you're aware, last fiscal year we came in about $3 million better than we anticipated. So even with $1 million up to $1 million, we're still going to be better than we anticipated being at this time in the 5-year forecast. So that's how. Hopefully I can get some more out of JED. Right now I'm just being very conservative with the JED. Even the PI contingency, there's $923,000 sitting there, so maybe we can take more out of there. just being conservative with everything, and just saying most of it may come out of general fund, but hopefully we'll see how it goes as the project goes. So.
And as Rick and I have talked about it, when we're looking at this project, if we start piecemealing things together and we don't do it all right the first time, then it's going to be piecemealed together. And if we're in a good place financially where we were ahead last year, and even like he said, he's being very conservative with the numbers, the amount of money is not significant enough to put anything at risk, whereas doing the project right the first time, all the pieces, as opposed to trying to add on later, would be both of our recommendation.
When will this be ready for use? Next year?
Yeah, the softball field is supposed to be done hopefully for next year. When we get into contingency discussions, one of the things Dr. Perkins approved was we are going to put sod in the softball fields, outfield, so they'll be ready to play next year.
Like this coming
we-
season.
This coming season, yes. So
Yeah.
it should be ready to play this coming season. And I think the two-story press box should be done too.
Okay.
The only thing that may not be completely done is the baseball field.
Yeah.
At this point, we're still playing grass on that, but
And tennis is going to be on the cusp, but we still have the ability to use the tennis courts. They're not stellar, we all know that. Obviously, we're building new ones, but it's going to be close. I'm not just sure if we'll get to use it a little bit or if it won't be at all until
this
the next
fall?
season. Yes, until the next season. But even then, it's around the corner. And the difference between the tennis courts, once they're done, they're done. Whereas, as we've experienced with the grass growing around the high school and intermediate, it's been quite the fiasco. So I don't think we can afford the cost of sod at, I think it's around $45,000. Is not significant enough compared to what we're looking at now and how to remedy and what might come out of the district's pocket to fix all the problems of the grass around the intermediate and the high school. So to me, do it right now so we can use the fields, we can play, plus we're taking two of their fields sooner than later. So that was kind of part of our discussion with that.
yeah. So hopefully everything's ready this fall for softball. Tennis maybe this fall. I mean, not this fall, this spring for softball. Tennis maybe towards the end, but definitely it'll be ready for the spring
Okay.
tennis season. So getting into contingency, we're asking for additional contingency. Right now for the softball fields, we had about 100,000 contingency, 50,000 kind of built in the contractor's contract, and they're 50,000 now, and we're at 111,000 contingency already. They ran into a lot of soft spots in the soil, bad soil, some issues with the drawings that caused some conflicts. Probably should have got caught earlier, but didn't, so that caused some reconfiguring that need to be done. So they're doing it right. That's what we keep telling them, do it right. If there's a soft spot, dig it up. I don't care where it's at. If it's in the field, dig it up, let's do it right. You know, especially if you think where it's going to be a parking lot, let's dig it up in the future.
Right.
So,
I mean, we know what we saw this spring with the baseball field,
Yes.
so.
yeah, so that's what we keep saying, we want to do it right.
Yeah.
Part of the reason we're asking for additional contingency phase one is we are over. We did talk about, there was originally a plan to water the base softball fields and future baseball field with a wells. They dug one well and they need 70 gallons per minute. They dug one well and they got 8 to 10.
Wow.
So it was significantly less than they expected. They just don't think so they don't think just digging wells is going to be enough. Another option they threw out there was, we'll turn the retention pond into a detention pond, and they can use the well to fill it and use that to water it. I mean, Dr. Perkins and I are not crazy about detention pond. It's a retention pond. The retention holds the water.
Yes, detention.
I'm not crazy about a retention pond with possible liability, fence around it, how it looks. So the third option, which Dr. Perkins and I are recommending, is going with domestic water. That's going to be about $166,000 to set it up. But that will also allow us that if we put, there's going to be a concession stand for a temporary concession stand for softball. But if we build a future one, I'm talking about building a future one for baseball and softball and tennis, that we can add water to it. We can add bathrooms to it using domestic water. If not, we would have to put we have to put it in later because you wouldn't want to use well water in there. So
The cost later would be.
we think this is the best solution to use it to water the fields, get the proper pressure they need, but also have the ability to expand for a future, basically restrooms, concession stands, or whatever else we want to do in that area. So we think that's the best solution, but that's about $170,000. So that's part of the $300,000 we're asking for. is so that still leaves about 100, 130, right in there. Hopefully we're getting close to being out of the ground, so hopefully that start getting minimized on stuff coming up. So
And we'll be tapping into the water from the high school.
right now we're looking at looking at tapping into where basically the fire hydrants are.
Okay.
Part of the concern and part, like I've reached out to school attorney, is the water and sewer district is trying to charge us an $88,000 tap fee, which is in that 170, to tap into our lines that we paid for and we installed. That we pay a tap fee for out at Smoke
Right.
Road. So, right now,
I guess they can ask.
yeah.
Well, they can ask for a 20-year TIF too.
Yeah.
So, right now, I'm having our attorney look into, I don't think we should have paid a tap fee. When we installed it, we paid for the pipe. We've already paid one tap fee. Why do we gotta pay another one to hook into our pipes? It's our system, it's not theirs.
Right.
We paid substantially for that original tap fee.
Yeah, between it and the high school, I think it was north of $200,000.
Yeah, it was like $250,000.
Yeah,
wasn't
so
it?
yeah, we paid a lot of money, and so that still may have to happen. I don't know the logistics around it. Our attorney is looking into it to see, but I feel like we shouldn't have to pay a tap fee. If we didn't have to, that'd say about 88,000 of that 170. So over half of that is just tap fees.
Just tap fees, wow.
So right now they're saying we have to pay it, so we have to work on that. Three more questions. We think
Where would we put the bathrooms? Where were we thinking
right
of
now
this?
they're originally they had the location of the concession stand down towards the baseball field, but that will probably change. Probably got to center it somewhere between the softball and baseball and tennis, and they were talking about putting bathrooms with that building whenever they do it. So it may not be anything. So right now they're not talking about. That's just in the future.
There's a nice
The
little
the
square.
site hasn't been, because that main area, the second floor, the first floor of that two-story, I thought was going to be more of a permanent concession, is really mainly for storage and temporary concession. So, because I was saying, well, why don't we bring water in there if we're going to use it for concession? They said, well, then you start getting the health department, and then so it's not meant to be a permanent concession stand. So that's they're going to build one later. So to be where it's going to be located at, but it's going to be somewhere central to all three complexes, so that you don't want down by baseball when you got a softball game, you walk. Doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
So
But-
we just got to find the right location.
So in the meantime, softball will have their own temporary, baseball will have their own temporary.
Yeah, right now baseball, I think maybe they're part of that complex. Yeah. So if you look down at baseball, you see it like the sidewalk. I think that very first little part is a temporary concession stand /
Yeah, it says dugout, press box, concession.
Concession.
Yeah, so it's all kind of temporary there until they get another one.
Okay.
And same thing, there's no water plant on going, just a temporary until they build a concession stand. So I think it's got to be somewhere north of that sidewalk or to the top of the paper.
Okay.
Somewhere in between there. I know up between the two fields, there's actually a retention area, in there for water. So they can't put it right there. So it's got to be somewhere in that middle. We just don't have the exact place determined yet. But right now they're going to bring the water line too, just below the varsity dugout there. And that's where it's going to hook into the water systems to water the fields, and they're going to leave it there. And then when we need it for the concession stand, then I run it from that to wherever the location of the concession stand is.
Rick, I may have missed this earlier, but when did you say the baseball field would be potentially ready?
So basically, Mr. Perkins, the AD, indicated they didn't really need it to the spring of 24.
Okay.
So that's the hope, to have it ready by the spring of 24. And it should be no reason why it's not.
No.
Yeah, it might be done earlier. But
Yeah, it could be done earlier,
We just
but
don't.
yeah, it just depends on
No.
grass, if it grows, if we decide to give sod at that time, depending how far. But right now, I'm looking at they don't need it because we do have a varsity baseball field now. We're not losing that, so they got a little bit more time for it.
And I would assume that we wouldn't be doing away with the current baseball field so that we could have two.
Correct.
The current
That's-
baseball field will stay a baseball
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
At least at this time.
Yeah, I mean, there are some future long-term
Oh, right,
drawings,
right.
but yeah, but nothing, I don't see in the foreseeable 10 years or more.
Oh, yeah.
Anything changing there.
And are we using our old lights for this complex?
The old lights for the new complex?
Yeah.
We
We
don't
have
have
not,
lights. There's
yeah,
not
those
really
are,
lights, no.
those are not they're gone. They're,
Tennis courts, I think,
We-
are going to be wired for
well, yeah, I
lights.
say they won't have
Or at
them.
least, but they're not going to have lights yet. That'll be in the future, because lights are about $200,000.
Per field?
Yeah, for each field. That's what they estimated, and that was originally, I can't talk. That's the number that was originally included in the estimate by Garmin Miller, was $200,000 per field. And that's something we decided not to do at this time, because the softball field and the baseball fields are not lighted yet now.
Right.
Tennis courts are, but most tennis courts are probably played during the day anyway, but it will be set up to add lights in the future.
Okay.
It's exciting. It's going to be a nice complex. You can see what's going
It
out
is
there
exciting.
now. And it does,
It's going to be really nice for our kids.
it's definitely going to be good. And long term, add more parking potentially, a concession stand, bathrooms. I think that'll be really good. In the meantime, they will have, porta pots out there for restrooms.
Does anyone have any more questions or comments?
Thank you, Rick and Casey, for working on this
Yeah.
for us.
It's a team effort.
Okay.
Exciting times.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Jones, could you please call the roll or the vote?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes, that passes. Item 4, closing item. My computer doesn't scroll that far. I assume it's adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes, we are adjourned at 4:47 p.m.